Hi, it's Katrina. Where did we really come from? However life began, it was definitely messy. Today we are unraveling the craziest, most unbelievable theories about the origins of humanity, and it is your job to let me know which theory you like the most. So let's get to it. When the gods fell from the sky. Were the Anunnaki creators of humanity? Were we made by gods from another planet? What did the Sumerians actually believe? Long, long ago, before the invention of the wheel, giant glowing beings may have landed on Earth with one goal: to mine gold and build humans from the mud of the earth like living, breathing Pinocchios. The Anunnaki were the ancient sky gods of Mesopotamia. These beings may have arrived on Earth at a time when humans were nothing but primitive, hairy Homo erectus. This shocking story can be pieced together through ancient Sumerian texts, which are some of the oldest receipts of human history. The texts claim that the Anunnaki were deities who came from the planet Nibiru and ruled the Earth. They were advanced, knowledgeable beings who weren't our friends but did teach us some things, whenever they saw fit. The Anunnaki taught their human creations astronomy, medicine, farming, and civil engineering. But according to some stories, they also forced us to work in the mines for something like 300,000 years while they collected most of the gold inside our planet. They taught our ancient ancestors lessons bit by bit until humanity was able to start its own civilization. And once that happened, the Anunnaki left us to our own devices, but not before starting a giant flood to wipe us out. Luckily, our good pal Noah, or the older Sumerian version named Utnapishtim, was warned by the god Enki to build a massive boat to save a small group of people and as many animals as he could so we could start over. Zecharia Sitchin, researcher and literary instigator of alien fever dreams, was the big pioneer of this wild theory. He argued that the Anunnaki were extraterrestrials who showed up 450,000 years ago to mine gold so they could fix their home planet Nibiru's broken atmosphere, something like that. Sitchin claimed that the Anunnaki looked at Earth's primitive hominids and thought, cute, but not very productive. So they broke out the cosmic CRISPR machine and spliced their own DNA with ours. This created Homo sapiens, Anunnaki intelligence inserted into a brawny ape's hairy body. Humans were created as the ultimate hybrid, which means there is no missing link. We were born in a genetic engineering laboratory. The ancient Sumerian texts even describe what our creators looked like. They said the beings were tall when they arrived on Earth. They had long hair and glorious beards, and they lived for thousands of years. The Sumerian King List, a tablet that lists all the rulers of ancient Sumer since the dawn of time, gives absurdly long reigns to their rulers, reigns that lasted tens of thousands of years. The existence of these beings was carried on into more recent texts, such as the Bible. In Genesis 6:4, there is a bit about angels of God hooking up with daughters of men and spawning horrific giants. This is an echo of the Anunnaki story. There is more than one scholar who believes the Nephilim from the Bible were created by the same celestial entities who made us in the very beginning. But they were too unruly, too evil, and too dangerous. So the Anunnaki killed them off with a flood. It's all very exciting, but is it true? And I have another question. If the Anunnaki did make us, why are they being absent parents? Shouldn't they stop by and check out how we're doing after all these eons? Some believe the Anunnaki never left. According to fringe theorists, they've been operating behind the scenes by influencing governments, banking systems, and maybe your smartphone algorithm. Is there proof? Not really. But has that ever stopped anyone from speculating wildly on late-night podcasts or YouTube channels? Absolutely not. Do you think the Anunnaki were the ultimate cosmic parents? Did they shape humanity, ghost us, and then leave behind a treasure trove of myths, monuments, and mystery? Deep-sea pressure cooker. There is a theory that we could be the product of crazy gases busting from a hydrothermal vent. In the pitch-black pressure cooker depths of Earth's oceans, something crazy happens every once in a while. The sea floor starts smoking. Not because it's on fire, but because it's home to hydrothermal vents. These are scorching underwater chimneys that belch mineral-rich fluid into the abyss like Earth's own angry espresso machines. And some scientists think these fiery pipes might be where all of life on Earth began. All life. Mine, yours, your dogs, all the birds, the dinosaurs, the trilobites, it all came from undersea vents, from the dark, briny depths where lava meets seawater and microbes throw wild chemistry parties. These vents are nature's underwater volcano chimneys. They tend to pop up along the seams of tectonic plates, the places where Earth's crust is cracking and pushing against the edges like a baked lasagna. As Maggie Georgieva, a deep-sea vent researcher at the Natural History Museum, put it, they are basically hot springs, but in the ocean, and way more intense. Thanks, Maggie! These vents can heat up to the extreme, as in over 750 degrees Fahrenheit. Then the hell broth brewing under the surface, down inside these vents, shoots up through the opening, loaded with dissolved gases and minerals. When the super hot fluid meets the icy ocean water, the minerals explode and start building chimneys known as smokers that are either black or white. Black smokers are the metalheads of the vent world, hotter, darker, and full of iron sulfides. White smokers are a bit more chill, carrying things like silica and barite that give off a ghostly, pale, smoky discharge. You would think in such a hot, smoky, lava-filled world, life would be absent. But despite the scalding temperatures, bone-crushing pressure, and zero sunlight, these vents are alive. In recent years, scientists have found tons of living things down in the depths, although most are pretty small. The hot vents are crawling with bacteria, which can grow even without sunlight by using something called chemosynthesis. It's like photosynthesis' goth cousin. Instead of sunlight, bacteria at these vents use chemicals from the vent fluid to create food. These microscopic masterminds convert toxic gunk into sugar like little Willy Wonkas of the deep. And once you've got sugar, you've got an ecosystem. Tube worms taller than toddlers, giant mussels, furry yeti crabs, and this scaly-foot gastropod, which is a snail with iron armor like a Dark Souls boss. And they are all thriving in this underwater inferno. The chemical soup constantly brewing in this environment might be so rich in life's building blocks that all Earthlings were created right here, right in these underwater chimneys. But what's really crazy is that life might have begun in these underwater chimneys at the same time Earth was born, way sooner than scientists thought possible. Earth's surface 4 billion years ago wasn't exactly a lot of fun. Meteor showers, lava flows, UV radiation. To be alive back then was a game of apocalyptic dodgeball. But in the deep sea, all was stable, warm, and full of energy and minerals. It was a much cozier setting for life's first molecules to shake hands and say, "Want to build a cell together?" Rocks found in Canada suggest microbial life existed in ancient hydrothermal vent environments as far back as 4 billion years ago. And what kind of metabolism did those microbes use? You guessed it, chemosynthesis. The chemical reactions taking place in these hydrothermal vents at a time when Earth's surface was being shelled by asteroids may have been enough to kickstart life. May have. Maybe. It's all ifs, ands, or buts. Because sadly, the truth is still out of reach. And it's too expensive and too dangerous to send an expedition into the sea to investigate hydrothermal vents. You can't just toss a bucket over the side of a boat and scoop up deep-sea worms. You need full-on James Cameron-style submersibles and fancy robot arms to brave the pitch-black, bone-crushing depths and explore these vent sites. And that costs money, which most scientists don't have. Not to worry though, maybe life started a different way. Let's check out the theory of abiogenesis. It's as cool as it sounds. And now for a quick break. But first, I want to give a shout out and a big thank you to Linda and Jacob Cameron for supporting this channel. Thanks so much for watching. Any relation to James Cameron? Maybe we can borrow his submersibles. If you are new here, be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out. We post every day. When rocks got romantic. Remember the good old days when Earth was a sizzling cosmic skillet of gas, lightning, and awkward chemical mingling? You know, back when life hadn't started yet and the universe was still a little hungover from the Big Bang? Yeah, those sure were the days. And then life happened. Squishy, wiggly, replicating life. No gods, no storks, no ET phoning home. Just a pile of chemicals doing the biological equivalent of speed dating in a volcanic nightclub. What if life wasn't created in the traditional sense? What if it simply emerged? This is the bonkers origin story known as abiogenesis, the theory that life didn't arrive on a meteor or get summoned by some divine recipe book, but bubbled up from non-living matter. Abiogenesis claims that life created itself from basic, non-living organic components found scattered across the barren world. Things like methane, ammonia, and water vapor all mixed into a primordial soup, and then life crawled out of it. Supporters of abiogenesis believe this molecular Tinder party only worked because Earth's early atmosphere was what scientists call reducing. That means it had a lot less oxygen in it. Add in ultraviolet radiation, volcanic heat, and oceans full of chemical chaos, and you've got a recipe that might just whip up life's first building blocks. A little ammonia, a little oxygen, and boom, one building block. Once enough of these building blocks were made, a teeny-weeny life form was born. And then it was only a matter of the life form growing bigger and more complicated, molecule by molecule, over millions of years, until it formed a complex organism. Simple, right? It's definitely a lot less complicated than some other ideas that humans have come up with over the years. Remember the Greek philosopher Aristotle? He once claimed that mice could spontaneously form from sweaty shirts and wheat. It even sounded weird as it came out of my mouth, but I'm dead serious. Aristotle believed in something called spontaneous generation. The idea that animals could just spawn from nothing but a pile of sweat hung around like a bad smell for centuries. Even the 17th century chemist Jean-Baptiste van Helmont was convinced that you could mix grain with a dirty rag and create baby mice. Who needs biology when you've got laundry? It wasn't until the 1800s that scientists finally agreed that mice could not be created from dirty rags, and this led to the theory of biogenesis, the idea that life comes from existing life. A mouse comes from a mouse, a plant from a seed. It's a great theory with one huge pitfall. It doesn't explain where the first life came from, and thus was born the theory of abiogenesis. It was a way to try and explain the whole chicken and egg problem, which, by the way, has already been solved. As a little bonus science for you, let me put an end to the timeless debate of which came first, the chicken or the egg, because it was, without a doubt, drumroll please, egg. Almost all serious biologists agree that the egg came first. Why? Because at its most basic level, an egg is a female sex cell. Eggs evolved far earlier than chickens. Amniote eggs were around 312 million years ago. Chickens are about 8,000 years old, descended from red jungle fowl. But speaking of origins, let's get back to the main event, abiogenesis. In 1953, two American scientists, Harold C. Urey and his grad student Stanley Miller, decided to test the theory. They built a contraption that mimicked early Earth's atmospheric vibes and zapped it with electrical sparks to simulate lightning. After just 1 week, amino acids, the most important bricks of life, started forming. But before you start clapping with glee, it's important to make a distinction. Harold and Stanley made some ingredients for life, but not actual life. It was like baking flour and sugar and saying you invented cake. To this day, abiogenesis has never been officially confirmed. It's a great theory, but one that is really difficult to prove. Like, you can say that sure, Mars was occupied by a race of supreme beings 10 million years ago, but you can't prove it because there are no archaeologists on Mars. To make matters worse, scientists are currently debating whether early Earth really had the right atmospheric cocktail for life. Ammonia and methane may not have been as abundant as scientists think. Nonetheless, abiogenesis remains the leading scientific theory for how life began on Earth. Just remember, it's only a theory. What if life began in a freezer? When discussing early Earth, most people imagine a scene straight out of Dante's nightmares. Lava rivers, hellfire skies, lightning storms throwing temper tantrums. A sizzling radioactive rock ball where life somehow clawed its way into existence against all odds. But what if it actually was a snow globe? Earth's first life forms might not have hatched in a volcanic sauna, but in a giant planetary freezer under sheets of ancient sea ice. According to new evidence from South Africa's Barberton Greenstone Belt, Earth may have been a snowball 3.5 billion years ago. Geologist Martin de Wit from Nelson Mandela Metropolitan University took a fresh look at rocks once thought to have formed in near boiling ocean water at the start of Earth's history. He found clues pointing to cold, deep-sea conditions. The smoking gun was a mineral called gypsum, which today only forms in chilly, deep marine environments. In other rocks, Martin and his team found varve-like siltstone layers with embedded pebbles. That probably sounds like gibberish, but what it means is that the rocks were involved with melting icebergs, which means the Earth was pretty cold, at least for a little bit. These findings suggest that parts of the ocean may have been capped with ice 3.5 billion years ago. Coincidentally, that was exactly when the first life forms appeared. Something about the extreme cold may have kickstarted biological life. But how? According to Jeffrey Bada at UC San Diego, freezing water can concentrate organic molecules. In ice, molecules get squished together. Reactions that take forever in warm soup can happen much faster inside an icy environment. Plus, cold slows down the breakdown of fragile molecules like RNA. This shocking discovery came as music to the ears of researchers James Atwater and Philip Holliger. Both happen to study the RNA world hypothesis, the idea that life began as self-replicating RNA strands. Their lab work shows that ice helps RNA form and survive. The basic idea here is that molecules got stuck in ice, were forced to touch each other and get cooties, and inside those blocks of solid ice, life's building blocks were born. If true, it could mean that life needs a whole lot more than just a few chemicals to start. It needs heat, cold, extreme cold, chemicals, liquid water, and a stroke of luck typically reserved for lottery winners. Our mystery ancestor. This might just be the ultimate no homo in history. Scientists just unearthed a juicy scandal buried deep in our DNA, and it has the world freaking out. It turns out modern humans are walking around with genetic scraps from a hookup our ancestors had with another mystery ancestor that no one's identified yet. It's like finding out you have another great-grandma you've never met. Oh boy, this is scandalous. The crazy part is that the mystery ancestor might not be part of the Homo lineage, as in not a Homo sapiens, Homo neanderthalensis, or even Homo erectus. That's what I meant by the ultimate no homo in history. What did you think I meant? Dr. Adam Seipel helped lead a study published in PLOS Genetics in August of 2022. He and his team found that ancient humans got frisky with Neanderthals earlier than previously thought, up to 300,000 years ago, possibly in the Middle East. Maybe on a long walk after a romantic night of stargazing and eating dodo birds. I don't know. This prehistoric booty call left Neanderthals with 3% to 7% of their genomes containing early Homo sapiens DNA. This bombshell proves the Neanderthals were part of our direct family. But it's only part of the story. According to Seipel, the same early human group that mixed with Neanderthals may have disappeared entirely, probably gone extinct. Using some genetic wizardry, Seipel's team compared the DNA of 2 Neanderthals, 1 Denisovan, and 2 modern African individuals. The goal was to build what's called an ancestral recombination graph. Think of it like the ultimate family tree. And this is where things get juicy. Researchers uncovered nested DNA hiding within our modern bodies. This nested DNA, lurking deep in our genetic code, comes from an unidentified third party. How much DNA is nested within us? Just a casual 15%. Who was this ancient Casanova? Maybe Homo erectus. Maybe not. No one has ever sequenced the genome of a Homo erectus, so it's quite impossible to confirm. All scientists can say for sure is that Homo sapiens are the result of a lot of hot and heavy romance between a lot of very hairy hominids and maybe a few lizard people. The jury's still out on that one. Who do you think the mystery DNA belongs to? How long does life take? All day I've been talking about how life was created. How did it happen? Where did it happen? Why did it happen? But I've forgotten another important question, which is how long did life take to really get going? According to the latest research, it happened fast. Shockingly fast. So fast that scientists are starting to suspect that life is not as rare as some say. Life on Earth was created with such blinding speed that some scientists think life is more probable than improbable on just about any planet. Wait, I thought we were special. So, how long did it take? Only a few 100 million years after Earth cooled down. Once Earth was cool enough to have liquid oceans instead of lava lakes, life sprung up pretty much instantly. If you want a date, scientists think between 4.1 and 4.3 billion years ago. This guess is based on evidence from Australian carbon isotopes and weird little filament fossils found in ancient Canadian rocks. Considering Earth itself is 4.54 billion years old, life may have shown up faster than your Bluetooth can connect to your earbuds. The fossil record backs this up with ancient stromatolites, layered microbial structures made by cyanobacteria dating to 3.7 billion years ago. Cyanobacteria were organizing, building mats, and changing the atmosphere. They were working to get Earth prepped for the rest of life. To really pin down when life started, scientists look at LUCA, the last universal common ancestor. LUCA isn't a fossil, it's an idea. It is a ghost cell, reconstructed through genetics, that sits at the root of the tree of life. Bacteria, archaea, and eukaryotes all come from LUCA's microscopic family reunion. LUCA was the very first living thing on this planet. New genetic evidence puts LUCA at being born 4.2 billion years ago, which means that life got rolling nearly as soon as Earth was physically capable of not instantly vaporizing it. The moment Earth was ready, it got pregnant. This revelation has led scientists to think that life can start anywhere, at any time, fairly easily, as long as the conditions are right, which means all of those Goldilocks planets out there, yep, they're definitely crawling with life. Lightning, lava, and the origin of everything. Back when Earth was less of a blue marble and more of a molten mess, lightning danced through skies of volcanic smog. Acid rain fell like a bad breakup playlist, and the surface bubbled with toxic sludge. Try to picture a hellish rock concert where volcanoes never stop headbanging. It was a ferocious place. And in this horrible mess of violent nature and unending storms, life was slowly brewing. All thanks to a divine spark. New information has come to light that suggests life on Earth began in a lightning strike. In 1953, a 23-year-old chemistry graduate student named Stanley Miller stepped into scientific immortality with one bold question. Could lightning turn simple gases into life's building blocks? Working at the University of Chicago, Miller filled a closed glass system with water, hydrogen, methane, and ammonia. These are all the gases scientists at the time believed made up Earth's early atmosphere. Miller zapped the mix with electric sparks to mimic lightning. He let it stew for a few weeks, and then his stomach dropped. When he checked the mixture, the water had turned a suspicious shade of brown. Lightning and simple atmospheric gases had created amino acids. These are the same molecules your body uses to build things like muscles and enzymes. In one epic test, Miller proved that basic chemistry could, under natural conditions, whip up the foundational ingredients of life. Now, it's important to note that Miller, like our scientist friends who tried to prove abiogenesis, did not create a living thing. He got the batter right, but couldn't make the cookies. When Miller passed away in 2007, his longtime colleague Jeffrey Bada and grad student Adam Johnson stumbled upon the preserved vials from his original experiments. They took the vials and analyzed them using modern technology, and the results were astonishing. Turns out Miller had tested a few versions of his main experiment. One setup simulated a volcanic eruption by injecting steam into the gas mix to mimic the atmosphere above a lava-spewing mountain. The samples from that version produced 22 amino acids, 10 of which had never been seen in any other similar experiment. This is amazing because it means that when volcanoes erupted on ancient Earth, they created amino acids, which then went on to build life. Volcanic eruptions don't just belch gas. They also create electrical storms thanks to ash and ice particles colliding in the sky. They shoot out hydrogen, methane, and a gas called carbonyl sulfide, which just so happens to help amino acids link up into peptides, the next step in building a life form. Volcanoes on the surface, not undersea hydrothermal vents, may have been giant cauldrons of chemistry bubbling on volcanic islands. The lightning created by their eruptions was like when Victor Frankenstein pulls the switch to power up his machine, also lightning-powered by the way, and brings his undead monstrosity to life. Frankenstein already knew what science is only now theorizing. Life began with a crackle and a spark. Maybe. Don't get too cozy because I have more theories on the way. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button and click the notification bell before you forget. We are all space aliens. Somewhere in the vast, silent vacuum of space, where temperatures swing like a moody teenager and radiation hits harder than your windowless microwave, tiny bacteria might be waiting to seed a new world, much in the same way it seeded ours. Welcome one, welcome all to the weird world of panspermia. It's a theory so bold, even science fiction writers are like, oh, okay, that's a bit much. Panspermia is the idea that life arrives on a world thanks to space rocks. Bacteria on comets, microbes on meteorites. These tiny life forms fly around in space like their asteroid Uber got lost. And then one day, when they crash into a planet, the microbes are released into their new environment. If the situation is ideal, life will form. From 2015 to 2018, Japanese scientists teamed up with NASA to mount a space experiment aboard the International Space Station. They slapped some hardy Deinococcus bacteria onto the outside of the ISS and left them up there for up to 3 years. The outer layers of bacteria died, but not the inner layers. Researchers found that a 1 millimeter thick colony of this bacteria could survive for up to 8 years in space. That's longer than a lot of people keep houseplants alive. Professor Akihiko Yamagishi, who led the project, said that if Deinococcus could survive that long, it could easily make it from Earth to Mars, or from Mars to Earth. Say an asteroid hit Mars really hard enough to send a piece of debris hurtling through space in the direction of Earth. That piece of debris has bacteria on it. When the debris hits Earth, the bacteria is released into a new environment. Sort of like releasing a pet snake into the wild, this alien bacteria could go on to destroy everything. Or it could make new life forms. It's entirely possible that Mars was once crawling with life. Then, after an apocalyptic disaster, the ingredients for life were shot to Earth, which means that every single living thing on Earth is technically a Martian. See? Worldview destroyed. Told ya. Panspermia is interesting because it means that life could come from anywhere. A planet could explode 10,000 light years away and send pieces of debris with healthy, slumbering bacteria to the far corners of the universe, seeding life on dozens of planets. Could this be how life spread through the entire universe? Are we the aliens? Scientific proof humans were built by aliens. Out in the swirling chaos of the early universe, as stars exploded and planets collided like cosmic toddlers fighting over toys, a message was hidden. Not in stone tablets and not in golden discs on spacecraft, but in you, in your DNA. Turns out human beings might indeed have been built by aliens. I don't know if it was the Anunnaki like I talked about earlier, but certainly aliens from another planet, presumably many light years away. Your glorious, coffee-fueled, sleep-deprived, perpetually confused human form might just be a walking, talking alien USB drive. And scientists think they can prove it. Nobody's asking you to phone home just yet, but scientists from Kazakhstan have tossed out a theory that's juicier than a steak. Human DNA might contain a coded message from an ancient extraterrestrial civilization. According to a study published in the scientific journal Icarus, which sounds like the kind of place aliens would sneak a memo into, our DNA is so freakishly precise, it couldn't have come about just through evolution. Kazakhstani scientists are calling it biological SETI, which is only clever if you know what SETI is, so I better tell you just in case. The SETI Institute is home to more than 100 scientists who constantly search for life beyond Earth, using everything from math to telescopes. One thing SETI does is send radio signals into space that hoping ET picks them up and sends over a diplomatic mothership to say hi. SETI stands for the Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence. Biological SETI is the same idea, but instead of beaming out a galactic Spotify playlist, scientists suspect that aliens hardwired a message into our genes and then flung us out into the universe like a cosmic email with a very long download time. The researchers said that this code, once fixed, might never change inside its host's bodies. It may have survived already for billions of years, and it might be waiting inside our DNA right now for scientists to figure out how to decode it, because right now they have no idea. And yes, this is exactly apparently like that Star Trek episode where Picard figures out that the humans, Romulans, Klingons, and all other humanoids were created by the same extinct ancient race of Omega powerful aliens. It's also the same kind of idea as the new Alien movies. Crazy to think it could be true. Now here's where it gets extra weird. The scientists claim that human DNA contains an ensemble of arithmetic and ideographical patterns of symbolic language. If that sounds like a math professor got bored and started dabbling in hieroglyphics, you are not far off. Basically, it looks less like random biological chaos and more like an alien Sudoku puzzle that's been tucked in your cells for billions of years. And when I say billions, I mean billions. The theory even suggests that we were invented outside our solar system, long before Earth's first embarrassing phase as a molten rock. This ties into the panspermia hypothesis I talked about before. Maybe those ingredients for life found on wayward asteroids were constructed by advanced aliens. But if those aliens built us humans, who built those aliens? And who built the aliens who built the aliens? That's a dangerous, inescapable paradox. If God made man, then who made God? Who made the Big Bang happen? And who made the thing that made the Big Bang happen? It goes on and on forever. This loop of who made who could be endless. For the foreseeable future, there will be no answers until scientists can figure out what the coded message in our DNA says. Is it aliens trolling us? Is it the key to advanced technology, only available to humanoid civilizations once they've progressed enough to read the code? I bet you didn't wake up this morning thinking you were going to be told that you are, in fact, a giant alien USB stick with 2 legs and a brain. But that's exactly what this theory says you are. What we all are. Secrets of an alien race that has long since abandoned us. What do you think is the origin of life? Let me know in the comments below. And thanks for watching. Be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out. See you in the next one. Bye.